The coffee
Oh my
cup was
gosh, I am
already
so
airborne when
incredibly
Tiana
sorry. I didn't
Blackwell
see you
realized
there.
she'd made a terrible mistake. Time seemed to slow as the iced caramel macchiato, her last $3.47, spiraled through the morning air in a perfect arc. She watched in horror as it connected with the chest of the most beautiful man she'd ever seen. The cup exploded on impact, drenching his pristine white Balenciaga shirt in sticky brown liquid. For a moment, neither of them moved. They stood frozen at the gates of Vanderbilt Prep, New York's most elite private school, while students flooded around them like water around rocks in a stream. The stranger looked down at his ruined shirt, then up at Tiana with eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies. His perfectly styled black hair caught the morning sunlight, and even covered in coffee. He looked like he'd stepped out of a Korean drama. "Maybe watch where you're going," Tiana heard herself say, immediately regretting every word even as they left her mouth. Defense mechanism, her therapist would have called it. Lash out before they can hurt you. The stranger slowly removed his AirPods, and when he spoke, his voice was smooth as silk with just a hint of an accent. "Maybe don't run with liquids? Maybe don't stand in the middle of the walkway looking like a lost Instagram model," Tiana shot back, her Brooklyn accent getting thicker with each word, the way it always did when she was nervous or angry or, apparently, when she'd just assaulted someone with overpriced coffee. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Instagram model? Yeah, pretty but useless." She adjusted her backpack, preparing to flee the scene of her crime. "You think I'm pretty?" Tiana didn't turn around, just raised her middle finger over her shoulder as she power-walked toward the school's entrance. "I think you're in my way." Behind her, she heard him laugh, a genuine, surprised sound that made something flutter in her chest. She absolutely refused to acknowledge that flutter. She had exactly 8 minutes to get to her locker, grab her chemistry textbook, and make it to homeroom before her scholarship was threatened for the 3rd time this month. She didn't have time for pretty boys with perfect cheekbones and eyes that probably cost more than her entire neighborhood. Vanderbilt Prep loomed before her, all Gothic architecture and old money. Yes, looking exactly like the kind of place that would charge $50,000 a year for the privilege of feeling inferior. Tiana had been on scholarship here for 3 years, and she still felt like an imposter every single day. The marble floors were too clean, the ceilings too high, the other students too wealthy. Everything about this place screamed that she didn't belong. She made it to homeroom with 30 seconds to spare, sliding into her seat next to her best friend Keisha, who immediately grabbed her arm. "Girl, did you just assault someone outside?" Keisha whispered, her dark eyes wide with barely suppressed laughter. "How did you already—" "It's already on TikTok. Rich boy gets coffee bath at Vanderbilt Prep. You're viral, babe." Keisha showed her the phone screen where, sure enough, someone had caught the entire incident on video. The comments were already rolling in. "Oh my God, kill me now," Tiana groaned, sinking lower in her seat. "Who even is he? He's gorgeous." "I don't know and I don't care. I'm just trying to survive this day without losing my scholarship." But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. 20 minutes later, Tiana found herself sitting in Headmaster Whitmore's office, watching as that same coffee-stained stranger was ushered in like visiting royalty. The headmaster practically genuflected, his usually stern face transformed into an obsequious smile that made Tiana's stomach turn. "Mr. Park, we are so deeply honored to have you at Vanderbilt Prep," Headmaster Whitmore gushed. "Your family's generous donation of $50 million makes this partnership truly—" "Just Min-jae is fine," the stranger interrupted, his voice polite but firm. He'd changed into a clean shirt, Tiana noticed. Of course he had spare designer clothes just lying around. The door slammed open and Tiana rushed in, breathless and 2 minutes late. Every head turned toward her, and she felt her face heat under their scrutiny. "Ms. Blackwell, how kind of you to join us," Headmaster Whitmore said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The warmth he'd shown Min-jae evaporated like morning dew. "Perhaps you'd like to explain why you're late. Again?" "Subway delays," Tiana lied smoothly. even though they both knew she'd been in the bathroom trying to calm her racing heart after seeing her coffee assault go viral. Of course. Headmaster Whitmore's expression made it clear he didn't believe her. This is Park Min-jae from Seoul. You'll be his cultural ambassador for the semester. Tiana's brain short-circuited. Excuse me? It's worth 15% extra credit toward your scholarship requirements, unless, of course, you'd prefer to maintain your current precarious academic standing. The threat was clear. Do this or lose everything. Tiana looked at Min-jae, really looked at him for the first time since the coffee incident. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read, curiosity mixed with something else. Recognition dawned in his eyes. You, he said simply. Me, Tiana confirmed, her voice flat. Headmaster Whitmore looked between them, confused. You've met? Briefly, Min-jae said. Wayne and Tiana could have sworn she saw amusement dancing in his eyes. Very briefly. Wonderful. This will make the cultural exchange even more authentic. Headmaster Whitmore beamed like he'd orchestrated something brilliant instead of essentially blackmailing Tiana into babysitting duty. You'll shadow each other, document your experiences, and produce a video presentation for our annual donor gala. It's a wonderful opportunity to showcase Vanderbilt's commitment to diversity and global perspectives. Tiana felt her jaw clench. Diversity. Right. Because having 3% Black students and 1 Korean transfer totally made them progressive. I requested someone authentic, Min-jae said suddenly, his voice cutting through Tiana's internal rant. Not comfortable. Headmaster Whitmore blinked, clearly not expecting that. Well, Ms. Blackwell is certainly authentic. Then she's perfect. Min-jae turned to Tiana, and for a moment their eyes locked. Something electric passed between them, something that made Tiana's breath catch. If you're willing, that is. I imagine you have thoughts about being voluntold into this. Tiana stared at him. Most people at this school treated her like set decoration, part of the diverse background that made their brochures look good. This stranger, this ridiculously wealthy, absurdly handsome stranger she'd coffee-bombed less than an hour ago, was actually asking her opinion. Do I have a choice? She asked, directing the question at Headmaster Whitmore. Of course you have a choice, Ms. Blackwell. You can choose to participate and secure your scholarship. Or you can choose not to and face the academic review board next week. So no choice at all. Tiana felt the familiar weight of powerlessness settle on her shoulders. This was her life at Vanderbilt. Comply or leave. Smile or lose everything. Be grateful for the scraps they threw her while they charged her classmates $50,000 for the same education she had to earn and re-earn every single semester. I'll do it, she said, hating how small her voice sounded. Excellent! Headmaster Whitmore stood, clearly ready to dismiss them. I expect weekly progress reports. Mr. Park, if you need anything at all, my door is always open. As they filed out of the office, Min-jae fell into step beside Tiana. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? For whatever I just cost you. You didn't want this. Tiana stopped walking. I genuinely surprised. How would you know what I want? Because I recognize the look of someone being forced into something against their will. His expression was serious now, all traces of amusement gone. I've worn that look my entire life. Before Tiana could respond, a group of students rounded the corner. She watched as heads turned, as whispers started, as girls' eyes widened and boys straightened their postures. Min-jae seemed oblivious to it all, his attention still fixed on her. So, he said, where should we start this cultural exchange? How about you start by telling me why a billionaire's son wants an authentic tour guide? Tiana challenged, crossing her arms. What are you really doing here? Min-jae's smile was sad. Running away, mostly. What about you? Running towards something. Or trying to. Then maybe we can help each other run in the right direction. Tiana studied him, trying to find the angle, the catch, the inevitable disappointment. Rich boys didn't help scholarship girls without expecting something in return. That was the first lesson Vanderbilt had taught her. "I need to get to class," she said instead of answering. "A P chemistry. You can follow if you want. Try not to stand in anyone's way." She walked away without waiting for his response, but she heard his footsteps behind her, steady and sure. When she glanced back, he was smiling again, that infuriating, gorgeous smile that probably made people across 3 continents lose their minds. "By the way," he called out, "you still owe me a shirt. Balenciaga's not cheap." "Then maybe don't wear it to school," Tiana shot back without breaking stride. His laughter followed her down the hallway, and despite everything, the forced partnership, the scholarship pressure, the complete disaster of her morning, Tiana felt herself smile. The chemistry lab was on the 3rd floor, past the library with its first edition collections, and the art studio where students casually worked with supplies Tiana couldn't afford to touch. She was acutely aware of Min-jae behind her, aware of the stares they were attracting, aware that by lunch, everyone would have theories about who he was and what he was doing with her. "This school is like a museum," Min-jae observed as they climbed the stairs. "Everything's so preserved." "That's one word for it. Exclusionary is another." "You don't like it here." It wasn't a question, but Tiana answered anyway. "I like learning. I like my teachers, most of them. I like that being here means I might actually get into a good college." She paused at the landing, turning to face him. "I hate that I have to be grateful for opportunities that other students here take for granted. I hate that one mistake, one bad grade, one late assignment could cost me everything. I hate that I have to work 3 times as hard to be seen as half as good." Min-jae listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. "That sounds exhausting." "It is. For what it's worth, I think you're already twice as good as anyone here. You spilled coffee on a stranger and somehow made it look like I was the one in the wrong." Despite herself, Tiana laughed. "I'm not apologizing for that. I wouldn't expect you to. It was the most interesting thing that's happened to me in months." They reached the chemistry lab where Mr. Oh Chen was already setting up for class. Tiana slipped into her usual seat at the back, expecting Min-jae to find somewhere else to sit, somewhere with the other wealthy students who wouldn't question his presence. Instead, he slid into the empty seat beside her. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Sitting? There are other seats. I like this one. You're here." Tiana felt her face heat. "You can't just—" "People will talk. Let them." Min-jae pulled out a notebook, seemingly unconcerned. "I stopped caring what people thought about me around the same time I realized most of them only cared about what I could do for them. Must be nice to have that luxury." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Tiana saw something raw in his expression. It's not a luxury when you don't know who actually likes you versus who likes your bank account. At least you know your friends are real. Bold of you to assume I have friends. Don't you? Before Tiana could answer, Keisha burst into the classroom, her eyes widening comically when she saw Min-jae sitting next to Tiana. She made a series of increasingly frantic hand gestures that Tiana interpreted as some combination of, "Oh my God, what is happening?" and "You better tell me everything immediately." Tiana mouthed "later" and turned her attention to Mr. Chen, who was beginning the lesson on chemical bonds. She tried to focus on ionic versus covalent, on the transfer and sharing of electrons, but she was hyper-aware of Min-jae beside her. He smelled expensive, like cedar and something else she couldn't quite place. His handwriting was neat, almost artistic, and he took notes in Korean and English simultaneously. "You're ambidextrous," she observed quietly. "How did you—" He looked down at his notes, surprised. "I switch languages when I'm thinking. Helps me process." "That's actually brilliant." "You think I'm brilliant?" He echoed her earlier words, that playful note back in his voice. "I think you're annoying." "That's not a no." Tiana bit back a smile and returned her attention to Mr. Chen, determined not to let this beautiful, frustrating stranger distract her from the education she was fighting so hard to keep. But when their hands accidentally brushed as they both reached for the periodic table, she felt that spark again. That electricity that had nothing to do with chemical bonds and everything to do with the way Min-jae looked at her like she was the most fascinating thing in the room. Class ended too quickly and too slowly all at once. As students filed out, chattering about lunch plans and weekend parties Tiana would never be invited to, she gathered her things with deliberate slowness. "So, what's next on this cultural exchange?" Min-jae asked. "Should I experience the American tradition of cafeteria food?" "Trust me, you don't want that experience." "Then where do you usually eat?" Tiana hesitated. Her usual spot was the library steps with Keisha and James, her two constants in this sea of wealth and privilege. Bringing Min-jae there felt like inviting a tornado into her safe space. "I eat outside, with my actual friends. Who will probably grill you like a prosecutor." "Sounds perfect." "You don't know them. James, especially. He's protective." "James? My best friend since kindergarten. He's going to hate you on principle." Min-jae's smile was challenging. "Then I'll have to change his mind." They made their way through the crowded hallways, past designer backpacks and casual conversations about vacation homes and trust funds. Tiana led him outside to the library steps, where Keisha and James were already waiting. James saw them coming and his expression immediately closed off, protective instincts clearly activated. James was tall and broad-shouldered, his dark skin gleaming in the afternoon sun, his expression as welcoming as a brick wall. He'd been Tiana's best friend since they were 6 years old, growing up in the same Brooklyn neighborhood, surviving the same struggles. He'd gotten into Vanderbilt on a basketball scholarship, and he hated it here even more than Tiana did. "Tiana," James said slowly, his eyes never leaving Min-jae. "Who's your friend?" "This is Min-jae. He's the new transfer student from Seoul. Headmaster voluntold me to be his cultural ambassador." "Voluntold." James's voice was flat. "Right." Keisha, ever the diplomat, bounded forward with her hand extended. "I'm Keisha. I saw your coffee bath this morning. That was iconic, honestly." Min-jae shook her hand, laughing. "I'm still finding coffee grounds in places coffee grounds shouldn't be." "Good," James muttered, but loud enough for everyone to hear. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Tiana watched as Min-jae pulled out his lunch, an elaborate bento box that probably cost more than Tiana's weekly grocery budget, and sat down on the steps without waiting for an invitation. "So, Min-jae from Seoul," James said, crossing his arms. "What brings Korean royalty to Brooklyn's finest establishment?" "Exile, basically," Min-jae answered honestly. "My family sent me here to learn American business culture. Really, they sent me here because I embarrassed them back home." "How'd you embarrass them?" Keisha asked, genuinely curious. "I told the truth about how they treat their artists. Got recorded. Video went viral. Suddenly I was a liability." He said it casually, but Tiana heard the pain underneath. "And now you're here, slumming it with the scholarship kids," James said. "How noble." "James," Tiana warned. "No." "He's right to be suspicious," Min-jae said calmly. "I would be too. I'm rich, I'm foreign, and I showed up out of nowhere attached to his best friend. If I were him, I'd assume the worst too." James blinked, clearly not expecting that response. Min-jae continued. "But for what it's worth, I'm not here to cause problems. I'm just tired of pretending to be someone I'm not. Tiana's the first person who's been real with me since I got to New York. That matters." "Real?" James's laugh was bitter. "She spilled coffee on you." "Exactly. She didn't apologize, didn't fawn, didn't treat me like I'm made of glass or gold. She treated me like a person. Do you know how rare that is?" Tiana felt something shift in her chest. The way he said it, with such genuine appreciation for what she'd thought was her worst moment of the day, made her see him differently. Not as a pretty distraction or a scholarship obligation, but as someone who might actually understand what it felt like to be seen as a symbol instead of a person. "Okay," James said slowly. "Okay, you can stay. But hurt her, use her, or make her life harder than it already is, and I don't care how much money your family has. We clear?" "Crystal." Min-jae extended his hand, and after a long moment, James shook it. Keisha clapped her hands together. "Great! Now that we've established the threat of bodily harm, can we eat? I'm starving and I want to hear everything about Seoul. They fell into an easier rhythm after that. Min-jae answered Keisha's rapid-fire questions about Korean food, music, and culture, while James watched with cautious acceptance. Tiana found herself relaxing, laughing at Keisha's terrible pronunciation of Korean words and James's skeptical commentary on Min-jae's description of Korean high school life. Wait, so you're telling me you had to stay at school until 10 p.m.? James asked, incredulous. Sometimes later, and then there's Hagwon, cram school after that. That's insane. That's Korea. Education is everything. Your worth is literally determined by which university you get into. Sounds familiar, Tiana said quietly. Different system, same pressure. Min-jae met her eyes, and in that moment, Tiana felt truly seen. He understood. The weight of expectations, the fear of failure, the exhaustion of constantly having to prove yourself worthy of opportunities others received without question. The moment was broken by a group of students walking past. The elite crowd, led by Chad Morrison, whose father owned half of Manhattan's real estate. Chad's eyes landed on their group with barely concealed disdain. "Aw, look," Chad called out loud enough for half the courtyard to hear. "The charity case got an international friend. Is this for your college essay, Tiana? How I helped the foreign exchange student adjust?" Tiana felt her whole body tense, familiar shame and anger warring inside her. She started to stand, to throw back some cutting remark, but Min-jae moved first. He rose smoothly, his entire demeanor changing. Gone was the friendly, self-deprecating boy who'd been sharing his lunch. In his place stood someone who radiated power and privilege, someone who'd been raised in boardrooms and taught how to command a room. "I'm sorry," Min-jae said, his voice polite but cold as ice. "I don't think we've been introduced. I'm Park Min-jae. And you are?" Chad faltered, clearly not expecting the response. "Chad Morrison. My father owns Morrison Real Estate. Yes, I know. My family's considering some properties in Manhattan. Your father's been very eager to meet with us." The pause before eager was deliberate, implying desperation. Chad's face reddened. His friends shifted uncomfortably. Min-jae continued, his smile sharp as a blade. "But I have to say, if this is the kind of behavior your company culture promotes, casual cruelty toward accomplished students, I'm not sure that's the kind of partnership my family wants to pursue. We prefer to work with organizations that value character over bank accounts." He let that sink in for a moment before adding, "Oh, and Tiana, she's not helping me adjust. I'm learning from her. There's a difference. She's earned everything she has here. What have you earned besides your last name?" The silence that followed was deafening. Chad stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish, unable to formulate a response. His friends had already started backing away, unwilling to be associated with his humiliation. Finally, Chad turned and stalked off, his pride in tatters. The courtyard slowly returned to normal. But Tiana could feel dozens of eyes on them now, could already imagine the rumors spreading through the school like wildfire. Min-jae sat back down as if nothing had happened, picking up his chopsticks and returning to his lunch. "You didn't have to do that," Tiana said, her voice more shaken than she wanted to admit. "I know. I can fight my own battles. I know that too, but why should you have to fight them alone?" James was staring at Min-jae with something approaching respect. "Okay, you can definitely stay." Keisha was practically vibrating with excitement. "That was the most badass thing I've ever seen. Did you see Chad's face? I wish I'd recorded it." But Tiana couldn't share their excitement. She was too busy trying to process what had just happened, trying to understand why this stranger had just potentially damaged a business relationship worth millions of dollars to defend her honor. "Your family's really considering Morrison properties?" she asked quietly. "They were. Not anymore." Min-jae looked at her, his expression serious. "And before you say I shouldn't have done that, or that it'll come back to hurt me, I want you to know something. I'm tired of being silent. I'm tired of watching people like Chad treat people like you as less than human because they were born into money and you weren't. If defending you costs me business deals, then good. Those aren't deals worth making." Tiana felt tears prick at her eyes and blinked them back furiously. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just let me be your friend? Is that allowed? You want to be my friend? I want to know you. The person who throws coffee and doesn't apologize, who fights for her scholarship like a warrior, who sees through all the bullshit to what actually matters." He paused. "So yes, I want to be your friend, if you'll let me." Tiana looked at James and Keisha. James gave her a slight nod. Keisha was making exaggerated say-yes gestures. "Okay," Tiana said finally. "Friends. But friends means honesty. And right now, honestly, I need to know what you're really doing here. Not the exile story. The real reason." Min-jae was quiet for a long moment, his chopsticks suspended halfway to his mouth. The afternoon sun cast shadows across his face, and Tiana watched as he seemed to wage some internal battle with himself. Finally, he set down his lunch and turned to face her fully. "The real reason," he repeated slowly. "Okay. The real reason is that back in Seoul, I trusted someone I shouldn't have. A journalist. I told her about how my family's entertainment company treats their artists, the impossible contracts, the mental health issues they ignore, the way they work people until they break. I thought she wanted to help expose it, to change things." He laughed bitterly. "She published it all right, but she made it look like I was a spoiled heir throwing a tantrum trying to sabotage my own family's business. The backlash was immediate. I became the villain of my own story." "But you were telling the truth," Tiana said. "Truth doesn't matter when reputation is everything. My mother gave me an ultimatum. Come to America, keep my head down for a year, prove I can represent the family properly, or I'm cut off completely. No inheritance, no trust fund, no safety net. And at the end of the year, I either come back and marry Ji-woo, the actress my family chose for me, and take my place in the company, or I figure out how to survive on my own." Keisha whistled low. "That's some serious family drama." "So you're on a leash," James said, understanding dawning. "1 year to be perfect." "1 year to be obedient," Min-jae corrected. "There's a difference." Tiana processed this information, seeing Min-jae in a new light. He wasn't just another rich kid slumming it for fun. He was trapped in a gilded cage, same as her, just with different bars. "And defending me against Chad? That's not exactly keeping your head down." "No, it's not." Min-jae's smile was reckless. "But I'm done being the person they want me to be. Oh, I'd rather be broke and honest than rich and miserable." "Easy to say when you've never actually been broke," James pointed out, but his tone was more understanding than accusatory. "You're right. I don't know what it's like to struggle financially, but I know what it's like to feel like you're suffocating, like every choice has already been made for you, like your life belongs to everyone except yourself." Min-jae looked at Tiana. "That's why I wanted someone authentic, someone who's actually fighting for what they want instead of just accepting what they're given. I want to learn how to fight." "Fighting is exhausting," Tiana said softly. "So is surrender." The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. Students began gathering their things, the courtyard slowly emptying. Tiana stood, brushing off her uniform skirt, very aware that the rest of the day stretched ahead of them. Over the next few weeks, Tiana and Min-jae fell into an unexpected partnership. What started as a forced cultural exchange evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. They discovered a shared passion for documentary filmmaking, a mutual frustration with systemic inequality, and a chemistry that neither could quite explain. Min-jae revealed his secret identity as Navjae, a successful music producer with millions of followers who had no idea he was a Korean chaebol heir. Tiana shared her documentary project about Vanderbilt's scholarship program, a controversial expose that could get her expelled but felt too important to abandon. "Let me help," Min-jae offered one afternoon in the media lab. "Oh, your project deserves professional production value. And if the school comes after me, they'll come after you too. Let them. I'm tired of playing it safe." They worked late into the nights, editing footage, conducting interviews with scholarship students who'd been failed by the system. The documentary took shape, powerful and unflinching, but their collaboration didn't go unnoticed. That's when the harassment started. An anonymous Instagram account called @Vanderbilt Insider began posting photos of Tiana and Min-jae together, accompanied by vicious captions accusing her of using him for money and credibility. The posts spread like wildfire, twisting their partnership into something calculated and manipulative. Breaking scholarship student Tiana Blackwell caught using Park Air for upcoming documentary project. Sources say she deliberately targeted him for funding and credibility. The attack was coordinated, professional, and devastating. Private school files were leaked, text messages were taken out of context. By the next morning, Tiana was being called in to the headmaster's office. "Perhaps it would be best if you took a brief leave of absence," Headmaster Whitmore suggested, not meeting her eyes. "Until this blows over." "You're suspending me? For being the victim of a smear campaign?" "Not a suspension. A temporary—" "It's a suspension!" Min-jae's voice was ice cold. "And it's illegal. She's done nothing wrong." The board members exchanged nervous glances as Min-jae continued, his voice deadly calm. "You're punishing Tiana for being targeted by what is clearly a coordinated harassment campaign. Have you investigated who's behind @Vanderbilt Insider, or are you just taking the easy route and blaming the scholarship student?" "Mr. Park, there's no need for threats." "That's not a threat. It's a fact. My family's donation came with conditions about institutional integrity and support for all students. You're violating those conditions right now." The suspension was reversed, but the damage was done. Tiana and Min-jae knew they needed answers. Min-jae's cousin in Seoul, a cybersecurity analyst, traced @Vanderbilt Insider back to Morrison PR, Chad's father's company. She compiled a full forensics report. IP addresses, timestamp data, payments to students for insider information. "We have evidence," Tiana said, staring at the report. "Now we need a platform." Min-jae's eyes gleamed. "The donor gala, Friday night. Every board member, every major donor, everyone who matters will be there." "You want to hijack the gala?" "I want to make it impossible for them to ignore us." They worked around the clock to finish the documentary. 28 minutes of devastating truth, polished and powerful. Board member interviews where administrators squirmed through contradictions, student testimonies revealing years of systemic failure, and at the end, the forensics report exposing Morrison PR's harassment campaign. The night of the gala arrived. Tiana stood in the tech booth with Min-jae and James, hands shaking as they prepared to hijack the video feed. 5 minutes, James said. "Systems ready?" Min-jae asked. "Ready. Once I hit this button, there's no going back." Tiana took a deep breath, then hit it. The lights dimmed. Headmaster Whitmore took the stage, beginning his prepared remarks about Vanderbilt's achievements. Behind him, the screen was supposed to show statistics and photos of happy students. Instead, it showed Tiana's face. "My name is Tiana Blackwell," her recorded voice said, "and this is what Vanderbilt Prep doesn't want you to know." Chaos erupted. Security rushed toward the tech booth, but the doors were locked. For the next 28 minutes, every person in that room was forced to watch scholarship students describe impossible standards, data showing resource disparities, board members caught in contradictions, and finally, irrefutable evidence of Morrison PR's harassment campaign. When the lights came back up, the silence was absolute. Then slowly someone started clapping. A parent. Then another. Then more. Wait until half the room was applauding while the other half looked furious. Tiana emerged from the booth to find cameras, parents wanting to shake her hand, and Chad Morrison being escorted out by his mortified father. She also found Min-jae's mother, elegant and terrifying as always. "That was quite the presentation," Mrs. Park said. "I'm sorry we disrupted your evening," Tiana began. "Don't apologize for making people uncomfortable with truth. That's called journalism." Mrs. Park's expression was unreadable. "My son tells me you're applying to Columbia." "Yes, ma'am." "Good. They have an excellent journalism program. When you graduate college, I'd like you to consider working with us. Not as an intern, as a producer with full creative control. Tiana's mouth fell open. I'm still in high school. I know. I'm playing the long game. Think about it. As Mrs. Park walked away, Tiana felt Min-jae's presence beside her. Did your mom just offer me a job? That's her version of approval. Consider yourself blessed. A reporter approached them. Tiana Blackwell, can we get a statement? Tiana straightened her shoulders. Yes, but only if you're interested in the full story, not the gossip, the actual truth about educational inequality. The reporter's eyes gleamed. Absolutely. Let's talk. The documentary went viral overnight. By morning, Tiana had 847 missed calls and was trending nationally on Twitter. Hashtag Tiana Blackwell sat at number 2, right below hashtag NBA Finals. The tweet that started the explosion was from @HollywoodJenna, a verified account with 4.2 million followers. Okay, but can we talk about how this high school student made a more hard-hitting documentary than most professional journalists? Tiana Blackwell is 17 and already doing the work. Thread incoming about why we need to protect this girl at all costs. Tiana's phone rang at 3 a.m. Min-jae. Are you seeing this? He said instead of hello. I'm trending on Twitter. There are memes. Someone made a gif of me saying, I'm about to end this school's whole career, and it has 10 million views. Apparently, people figured out I'm Navya too. Now there's a conspiracy theory about us being a power couple plotting to take over the media industry. There's fan fiction, isn't there? 17 chapters. Keisha sent it to everyone we know. Despite the chaos, Tiana laughed. Then her Columbia admissions counselor texted, While we're thrilled about the documentary's success, please remember Columbia students are expected to maintain certain standards of conduct. Also, my daughter wants to know if you'd sign her copy when school starts. This is insane, Tiana said. Welcome to being viral. We need to get ahead of this. Control the narrative before someone else does. Your mom's idea? She's already making calls. The New York Times wants a joint interview. Maybe Good Morning America. Min-jae, I can't. You can. We'll do it together. 3 days later, they sat across from a New York Times journalist in a Manhattan cafe. The article that emerged was thoughtful, nuanced, and led with their story rather than the controversy. The unlikely partnership that exposed elite education's dark side ran in the Sunday magazine with photos of them reviewing footage in the media lab. It quoted Tiana extensively about systemic inequality, gave Min-jae space to discuss the pressure of family expectations, and treated their relationship with respect rather than sensationalism. The response was overwhelming. Columbia confirmed Tiana's acceptance with a full scholarship. Vanderbilt Prep announced new leadership and policy changes. Chad Morrison was expelled. His father's PR firm lost multiple clients. And through it all, Tiana and Min-jae navigated what they were to each other. So, Min-jae said one afternoon on her fire escape, we should probably define this, what we are. We're partners, Tiana said carefully. In crime and maybe romance? That's a terrible label. You got a better one? Tiana pretended to think. How about two people who are figuring it out and refusing to let anyone else define their story? I can work with that. He kissed her then, quick and sweet, and when he pulled back, he was grinning. So we're official? We're officially refusing to be anyone's narrative. Close enough. On the last day of school, they sat on the roof of Vanderbilt Prep, watching the sun set over the city. Columbia in the fall, Min-jae said. NYU for me, same subway line. Is that your way of asking if we're going to keep doing this? I'm asking if you want to. Tiana considered seriously. Yeah, I do, but Min-jae, I'm never going to be easy. I'm always going to speak my mind. I'm always going to fight for what I believe in. I know. That's what I like about you. Even when it's inconvenient? Especially then. Tiana leaned her head on his shoulder. Okay, let's keep doing this. Whatever this is. Seoul meets Brooklyn, round 2? Something like that. They sat there as the sky turned from gold to pink to purple, not making promises they couldn't keep, just being present, being honest, being real. 3 months later, Tiana walked onto Columbia's campus with her documentary equipment and a full scholarship. Min-jae was across town at NYU, pursuing a dual degree in business and music production. They met for coffee every Sunday at a shop halfway between their schools. The documentary continued to spark conversations. Tiana received offers from other schools wanting to tell their stories. Min-jae's music career exploded once his identity was public, but he used his platform to highlight social justice issues. They fought sometimes. They frustrated each other regularly. The long-distance relationship between campuses wasn't always easy, but they kept showing up, kept choosing each other, kept building something neither could have created alone. And one Sunday morning, sitting in their usual coffee shop, Min-jae slid a flash drive across the table. "What's this?" Tiana asked. "A new project. Documentary series about international students navigating American education. I want to produce it. You direct. What do you think?" Tiana looked at the flash drive, then at Min-jae, then at the future stretching out before them, full of possibility and challenge and truth. "I think," she said slowly, a smile spreading across her face, "we're going to need a bigger platform." "That's what I was hoping you'd say." And just like that, they were off again, running towards something instead of away, together, building something real, something that mattered, something that started with spilled coffee and ended up changing everything.